Today, Leica announced a new camera body, and it's Leica, so you know it's not just any camera. This is their latest M mount camera. This is the M10-R. I was fortunate to use the camera for a couple of weeks last month, so today I can share with you photos I captured and my experience with the camera. Out of the gate, let me say that this camera is wonderful, especially if you are a fan of the Leica M cameras. It's a big leap in terms of specifications. I will put some of those specs up on the screen right now. I enjoyed every moment with the M10R and the results are fabulous. On top of that, Leica has a core design philosophy, and it is never more obvious than with the M line of cameras. It's a beautiful camera, it's easy to use, and in short, what the M10R is designed to do, it does very well. For those of you that are Leica aficionados, you're probably pretty excited right now. For those of you that aren't Leica experts, let me share a quick bit about the heritage of the M line of cameras to catch you up, and then I'll discuss more of the specifics of the M10R, and I'll share more photos too. Leica's first M camera was introduced in 1954. Obviously, it was a film camera, and these newer M cameras are digital, but Leica has stayed true to that initial concept. A compact rangefinder camera with tactile manual controls, manual focus only. In fact, you can use all of the M lenses ever made on the M10R, and there is, of course, the simple, elegant beauty of a Leica camera body. I think that if I could bring a photojournalist from the 1950s into 2020, they could bring their M mount lenses with them and they could be up and running on this camera in just a few minutes. They'd be astounded by the technical advances, but Leica has made sure that it is always the same overall experience with their cameras. But about those technical achievements. Leica toes the line between simplicity and advancements in technology. They don't just give you features because they look good on a spec sheet. They are more purposeful than that. You may have seen when I put some of those specifications up on the screen earlier that the M10R has a brand new 40 megapixel full frame sensor. And that's quite the jump. The M10 and M10P have a 24 megapixel full frame sensor. But what does that actually mean? Isn't 24 megapixels enough? Maybe so, but more megapixels means you have more room to play. You can zoom in more on the image and continue to see detail. And I know more than a few of you out there take great joy in pixel peeping, so that might be reason enough for you to want this camera. But practically speaking, you have a greater ability to make larger prints. You have more latitude to crop your image if you need to, without sacrificing detail. Or maybe you just didn't quite get your composition the way you wanted it. You can crop a bit and change that. And it's not to say that you couldn't do those things on the older 24 megapixel sensor. You just have more flexibility now. In my case, I was using a couple of prime lenses, so when I couldn't get quite close enough to my subject with one of those two focal lengths, I could crop in post-processing, like I did here with this self-portrait using a 35mm lens. Incidentally, I used the Leica Photos app, which connects wirelessly with the M10R, and I had an easy time connecting and using it, which is so refreshing because a lot of the camera apps out there are not so easy to use. I mentioned earlier that Leica gives you the technology where it makes sense. You certainly don't have to use the app, but you have the option if you want to. For example, take self-portraits or your own family portraits. And for those of you that might be wondering what that bump in resolution does to image quality in low light, it's not a problem. Leica made a point to actually improve low light performance with this new sensor. And when I asked about what that meant to them, they said that it not only included the appearance of noise, but also improvements in terms of banding and overall color reproduction. And looking at another one of these self-portraits using ISO 1600, you can see that. I edited it to get this kind of old film look, but I didn't do any noise reduction, and it looks quite crisp. And speaking of the new sensor, Leica says that the dynamic range surpasses all of the predecessors. I can show you this unedited image. A difficult lighting situation, certainly, and here it is once I edited the raw file. I was able to draw detail out of the light and shadow to make this very dynamic finished product. There are other things improved on the M10R. The shutter, for example, it is a very quiet mechanical shutter. This camera is meant to be stealthy. It comes from a lineage of street photography. So the all but silent shutter, along with the compact body and the lenses, they make for an easy to grab and easy to carry around setup. Image quality is a bit of a foregone conclusion these days. Cameras are simply getting better and better, but let's look at that. We saw the low light quality, but let's take a look at this well-lit situation. Even when zooming in, you retain detail. I would expect nothing less. Of course, your image quality will depend largely on your lens, but the M10R is not going to be holding you back. This was the first M camera that I have used, but since I have used a number of other Leica cameras, I had an easy time picking it up and getting to the photo taking. Sure, I had to practice for a minute using manual focus with an optical viewfinder, but the M10R has the same 3-button scheme that we've been seeing on the back of Leica cameras recently, like my own Q2. If manual focus is a concern for you, here are a couple of helpful hints. First, the optical viewfinder has a parallax in it, so you line up your vertical lines and voila, your photo's in focus. A little bit of practice, I used a shallow depth of field and practiced on these bicycle wheels that are hanging in our dining room. Yes, we have bicycle wheels hanging in our dining room, but I brushed up on my skills with those and I was ready to go. Also, you can use live view on the rear LCD screen, and there is focus peaking that you can turn on in the menus. In addition to that, there is an optional electronic viewfinder that you can purchase where you can also use focus peaking. The M10R does have advances in terms of technology, but that doesn't mean that the other M10 bodies are no longer desirable. In fact, the other M10 models in the current line will still be available. That's the M10, the M10D, M10P, and M10 monochrome. These M cameras, they're built to last. The M10R is no exception. They are meant to be kept for years and passed down through generations. My experience with the M10R was this. When I allowed myself to slow down and put myself into the process, like I did with these Arboretum photos when I was just walking around on a sunny day, when I focused on the process of manually focusing, manually turning the aperture ring on the lens, I found that I really enjoyed it. I simply liked having the camera in my hands. Now I do appreciate the benefits that technology has to offer when I'm working and trying to be super fast, and I want face detect autofocus and all of that bells and whistles. But I love photography in all of its forms, and this camera definitely fits a more mindful, intentional way of capturing the world around you. So, is this the camera for you? I often get asked, is a Leica camera actually worth it? And I can't answer that for you. Rather, I suggest you know who you are, you know what you want, you know what you're willing to spend. Value is dependent on the capabilities of the camera, but also how important each of those is to you, along with the experience of the camera and how long you want to keep it. For example, if you have a deep collection of M lenses, you love the M experience, this might be a camera that is worth it for you for the resolution and low light performance. On the flip side, if you like the idea of this camera, but you aren't interested in focusing manually, for example, there are other Leica cameras to try. Look at the Q2 or the CL or the TL or the SL2 even. I don't think there's a poor choice in cameras on the market today. We are spoiled to have so many options. Where I think cameras differentiate themselves is the experience. And it is my own experience being here, having conversations with you all on YouTube for over 10 years, that everyone likes something a little bit different in the use of their gear and in what is worth it to them. So if the M10R intrigues you, I suggest trying to get one into your hands. Try it out in a shop so that you can understand what I mean about the experience. Or really, try any Leica camera because they are faithful to the overall feel, tangibility of control, and design language. Like I said earlier, I had an easy time picking up the M10R and using it right away because I have experience with other Leica cameras, but it is an overall easy to use system anyway. But using any Leica camera will give you an idea of the experience with the M10R. If you want to learn more about the brand new M10R, I will link to it in the description box. I'll link the lenses I used as well. As I'm filming this, the US price is $8,295, but you'll be able to find the price in your area at that link as well. That's all I have for you today, friends. Please give this video a like if you enjoyed it or found it helpful. And if you're new here, hello, my name is Leigh. Subscribe. You can even click the bell to be notified when I share new videos. I post them every week about photography, gear reviews, all different brands, photography tips, art, and whatever else I can come up with. I love photography and I love talking about it, so it's never long between videos. But until the next one, thank you for watching.